Welcome to everyone to this new episode of Building Connections podcast. And with me today is Ted Ritter, who is principal of LMI 360 and heading the IFMA Beta and IT community. So I guess you'll guess what the topic will be about today, which is indeed IT, of course. So Ted, a warm welcome to you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Glad to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, well, we'll have a conversation of what's moving, let's say, I would say our business in terms of technology today. So basically, just to fall right into that conversation. When you look at IT developments, technology developments today as relevant to our business, what do you think are the most important developments that professionals would have to look for today?
Most important. Oh, wow. There's so many things that have evolved so quickly since the pandemic. I think, having a better handle on what the underlying data means. I think the improvement in analytics overall and reporting capabilities, regardless of any particular system, is probably, top of mind for me. I think that given our evolving hybrid work environment, being able to, really actually see what people are experiencing, whether in the office, when they're at home, what kind of occupancy rates, and then what that really does to the demands on building systems, whether it's water, power, air, that kind of thing. So I think I'll go with data visualization.
Yeah. So when you talk about when you touch on the topic of analytics or reporting or whatever, what kind of issues are basically top of mind with the FM real estate professionals today? In what kind of area are they looking for reporting and analytics solutions where it's not very obvious today?
Good question. So, I think the standard stuff that we've always looked at is, how is my department or my team doing in terms of completed work versus work that's been deferred? Do we have enough resources? Are we getting information back from the field for basic work processes, service requests? I think beyond that, already touched on occupancy. Where is everybody? Can I glean some information so I can have a good conversation with corporate real estate on, what the right size of our portfolio should be.
Yeah.
And I think, looking at how are we doing on our consumption? Are we staying the same? Are we improving? Are we reducing our carbon footprint? What measures can we put into place that will help us operate more sustainably?
Yeah. Because I think that last point is quite interesting. As I don't know whether there's a fundamental difference. I probably, to some extent, there might be between the different continents of the world, but the whole sustainability drive and the compliance drive seems to be basically encompassing all the continents. If I look at the financial bodies that are now moving into sustainability reporting as well, so what do you see happening on that front of sustainability compliant reporting as regulations are being put out in the world today?
Yeah, and, there's awareness everywhere. I can't speak for the entire world, but from, closest to home for me in terms of, what's happening in the United States. Hawaii and California have very strong compliance requirements now. The rest of the country, quite frankly, it doesn't. So I think we're seeing large organizations, multinational organizations, those companies that have already made a commitment to the Global Reporting Initiative, continue to try to do better. I think for small to mid-cap companies, if there isn't compliance requirements that are backed up by fines, they're not going to do as much as we would like them to. I mean, it's just kind of a fact. I think from an overall compliance perspective, everything I've read about what's been happening in Europe, I mean, definitely more focus, more compliance. The momentum is farther ahead, I think, than it is here. And compliance versus just doing the right thing. Looking at Latin America, I think it's a country by country kind of answer. There aren't, other than 2 countries I'm aware of, strong compliance requirements yet. But that doesn't mean other countries aren't sort of voluntarily moving towards a more sustainable way to operate.
At the same time, it's because we can talk, of course, about compliance reporting, which is a stage 1. I think I do agree with you in terms of that regionally. I think as well that regulations basically are different and the drive is different. But I think at the same time, we collectively are looking to reduce the footprint of buildings in itself. So when you look at technology to basically help that cause around, what kind of technologies do you regard as key for FMs to adopt?
So, once we've established, what our consumption rates are and we have some kind of benchmark or baseline against what similar size organizations and similar size portfolios are consuming, what do we do? I think looking at, is it technology or is it remediation? Variable speed drives, can make a huge difference in consumption. Ensuring that, we've done a recent recommissioning for mechanical equipment. I think, a lot of organizations forget that they have to recalibrate their building control system. Those sensors are not perfect forever. We've seen some really good case studies whereby, going through a relatively cost-effective recommissioning and recalibration to save 10 to 15% on their electric consumption. So look, that's kind of easy stuff. Looking at, step beyond that, whether it's full remediation of glazing or installation of solar, that's kind of shifting out a little bit. Is that still technology? Maybe it is. Maybe a little bit of it is. But I think, treating commissioning and recalibration of building control systems as, kind of something that we do every 2 or 3 years can have huge results.
Yeah, well, to your point there, because you state, you touch on solar, and so I factor in renewables like wind as well in there as well, of course. I seem to notice a kind of structural problem that we almost worldwide are dealing with in terms of the electrification of buildings, which is, of course, at the heart of becoming more sustainable in terms of building footprints, of course. And part of that, it seems to be, in my view, what I seem to see coming is this technology of microgrids, where systems are not only going to decide when to consume from the backbone, but also basically manage a local storage of energy and the consumption of the renewables as at the time they really produce stuff. How do you see that in America evolve?
I think it's given our geography, it's going to be scattered in terms of adoption. I think for major metro areas, we'll have a much better chance of seeing success. And then in terms of selective suburban areas that are by nature high-tech or white-collar focused, I think there's an opportunity there significantly. We have some very specific developments, for example, in Arizona, one on the west side of Phoenix, one in Chandler, where that is happening today. But most of the country is not happening yet. Interesting.
Yeah, cool. Well, again, perhaps a difference in regions over the world, of course. But let's go to something else, and I think we're going to talk about that in the future more and more over as well. And when we talk about IoT in buildings, the topic of digital twins, and so what I seem to notice is basically the buildings become more and more an IT object. They are becoming more and more digital. And over the back of that, we're talking about digital twins in general. So what's your perspective of what the digital twin should be about for facility management?
Oh, that's a loaded question. How much time do we have? Oh,
Well, not too much. Actually.
okay. I'll be brief then. In terms of what kind of digital twin do to benefit FM and the department, I think that there's significant opportunities for reduction in cost of maintenance. I know that with one specific case study we worked on with the IT community, it was a multinational, and they went and invested the money over the space of a year and a half and created a full digital twin portfolio. The reduction in travel has been spectacular in terms of cost savings. The ability to have a team meeting around an issue that was happening in whatever building and bring the right subject matter experts to focus on what the issue was and really see what the issue was to speed towards resolution, very much so. I think that if there is that digital twin there, and if the team's staff or vendors is equipped to have access to that, when you're sending them out, whether it's a reactive or preventative maintenance work order, they're going to have a lot more information than they would otherwise. That can make a big difference. So I think, reduction in maintenance costs from several perspectives is probably the most tangible benefit that I see.
Okay. So, but when you talk about digital twins created, what kind of key components in terms of technology make out the digital twin in your view?
So, look at it as, in my mind anyway, there's two aspects to a digital twin. What's the overall container? Was that a Revit model with certain attributes? And then there's the asset data that goes in that wrapper, goes in that model. What level of detail is worth investing in to give the person in the field, to give the person, looking at the digital twin on the other side of the world, the information needed to make good decisions. So I think, looking at however we create the overall wrapper, whether it's 3D model or starts out with a point cloud, is half of it. The other half is how do we populate it? What is the data set that we're actually including, and what to include that's truly of benefit?
Yeah. So it's actually a kind of creating digital twins should actually be a kind of problem-driven effort than anything else, would it?
Yes, I think so. Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't know if that was a leading question or not. Sorry, Eric.
So, actually, so let's touch on something else, because all topics that we can discuss today basically drive towards the digitization of building and infrastructures in buildings itself. So with that comes, of course, an element that we hardly talk about, which is cybersecurity. And I know you've been active in that field in overseeing, what kind of initiatives take place in terms of digitization, what kind of cybersecurity elements come into play there. Can you say something about your findings over the past, let's say, years, months, whatever?
Sure. I think it's been a revelation, and not always a good one, how vulnerable that we can be, that most organizations are. I think in terms of uh, looking at the fundamentals that every single FM should look at is ensuring that their building control systems and if they're responsible for security have been checked and double checked, that they are absolutely as secure as possible. I think, looking at, some guidelines that the IT community put together about 3-4 years ago on how to, are we safe or not? The building control system safe or not? So readily available. I think it's going to be an update to that this spring. Beyond that, we kind of got a little bit crazy with everything IoT, and it's gotten so cost effective that we can just buy stuff and install it and not tell anybody. Well, for it to work, we connected it to our Wi-Fi, and half the time it seems that people forget to change the default passwords on the device, whether it's an extended thermostat or it's a video doorbell. We need to be careful. We can't just go install stuff because it's cost effective and solves an immediate problem or provides some immediate benefit without going through the same process as we would for a major piece of equipment.
Yeah.
We're definitely setting ourselves up for a challenge if we don't do that.
Well, I just want to touch on that point that you just made on this doorbell, which is, of course, just a tiny example. But what I seem to notice is that when FMs are looking for an IoT infrastructure, around workplace, of course, you have the topic of sensors and stuff. And what I seem to notice is that there's very little attention being paid to the cybersecurity elements around a technology that you can buy from a vendor in that respect. But it primarily seems to be about the price per sensor and not so much about quality of the cybersecurity around it. Do you agree with that?
Unfortunately, I do. I think it most organizations are really protect themselves the way they should. Another example, we are in the age of net meetings and group meetings and the, typical AV screen with soundbar and camera.
Yeah.
We don't think about the fact that is, that typical soundbar with a camera probably has 8 sensors in it, and we don't really think about it, at all. And there's tens of thousands of them out there that
Right.
can cause a breach, could cause a risk.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. Completely right. Actually, to me, it would drive to the type of advice never to acquire this type of material without the involvement of your IT colleagues, right?
Should you have, that sanity check and that partnership with your IT department? Absolutely. But it's gotten so simple to where, I can order something on Amazon and it's here the next day and I just, plug and play and I don't think about it. I don't worry about it because it's not a major purchase.
Right. But it can be a major vulnerability in the IT infrastructure of your company, can it? So basically, I think that's something to really work on. I can remember that last year at World Workplace EMEA, we basically kicked it off in terms of an initiative to try to build a kind of cybersecurity standard model for buildings and the technology in that, and probably the time is there to continue that as well. Something else, because we can't avoid it. ChatGPT, AI, it seems to have taken a giant leap this year. How do you put that in perspective to the FM and real estate business?
I think it's still developing technology. As you said, it's a giant leap forward. Looking at, what's possible, whether it's AI embedded in a browser or it's plain language Q&A, it's gotten surprisingly good. So I think on the one hand, it can be helpful. On the other hand, it can make us over-reliant, and do we trust it? To kind of blend the concerns between AI and cybersecurity. How do you know you've got a good actor? I mean, how do you know that your AI is really a good guy? In some instances you don't. There were some examples of AI that was developing, and before it got shut down, one particular branch of research and development had actually claimed to have fallen in love with the programmer.
Yeah.
And had started to do some fairly malicious, jealous things. That's a concern. I think there's some great benefits, but I think we need to be quite careful on what we consider appropriate reliance on the technology, and continue to question and make sure that it's operating well, just like a building control system.
Actually, I think in terms of AI and how trustworthy it is today, there's two elements of it. What's the data set that was used for learning the model to whatever purpose it would have, either asset management, workplace, whatever. And what kind of bias the data may present to you as well, So I have the impression that AI for monitoring technology systems, like how buildings operate in their technology realm, seem to be less risky than using them in order to understand something about workplace preference. Because that what kind of data set is being used for that, and how objective is it, and that kind of thing. These are all questions we really have to figure out, I guess.
Yeah. So I was weekend before last, I was playing with the latest and greatest AI, and it was asking questions. And one of the questions I asked was, what are the benefits of digital twins? And it was remarkably lucid, complete, and thorough in terms of the answers it gave. So I think you may be right. I think, if it's something quantifiable, building system, that's one thing. Looking at some of the other examples, it seems more quantifiable. Was an example set of a piece of code there was an issue with, and plugging the code in and asking ads, what was wrong with my code. That was kind of impressive. That was impressive. When it gets to more human interaction, I'm not so sure. It's comfortable.
Yeah, something to really look at, and then basically dig in a little bit more. I guess IFMA and the IT community beta will be working around the topic in the over the months to come, right? Yeah, I think it's a very important topic, of course. So, in terms of because we're basically closing near the closing of this conversation. When you would be an FM person, professional, what technologies would you prioritize looking at when you look at the general issues that we are dealing with today? What would be your focus on first focus on technologies to look at in order to improve your performance and your services to your organization?
So, number one, it's got to be work management, and that's a fairly generic answer. But whether you've got 100 building occupants, or you've got a portfolio where you're dealing with 10,000, the importance of clarity on expectations, on KPIs, on spend, on self-perform versus vendor engagement. So I think work management, it's number one. try to get away from it still and be a little more automated there is probably would be top frame. And I mean, I think that's universal globally.
Cool. So when you as an FM professional would embark a project in which you're going to basically introduce new technologies in your profession, in your business, do you have advice on how to go about doing that? What are good principles to start a project when you're going to introducing a new type of technology, whatever it is, IoT, AI, whatever it can be, work order management, whatever? What's your advice?
Don't do it in a vacuum. I mean, you need to engage everyone that's going to have a stake in it, from your partners, the technology provider, your IT department, the division heads of the different departments in your organization. Everyone's going to be affected by it. Your team members, of course, your vendor base, depending on the type of technology you're introducing. But, technology is just a tool to support operations at the end of the day. So if we're investing in specific technology, make sure we've heard from all the stakeholders what their needs really are, keep them apprised, and communicate well during the process of deployment. If it's a large scale endeavor, do a pilot first and make sure you work anything out, it's going to cause an issue, but then be able to use that pilot, let's say in the San Francisco office or whatever it may have been, as a great win example that, then gets transferred around the country or around the globe. But communication and what are the real requirements and expected outcomes? I think that's probably the best advice.
That's nice. But I would, from my side, what I would add to that is start with a good description of the problem you want to solve, and make sure you keep it at heart as long as the project runs, because we sometimes in our business, I think we call it scope creep, that you basically are going to, oh, that's nice as well, or that's great, I want to do that well. But you started out solving a problem. Before you know it, your project is, of course, prolonging and basically perhaps even getting off track by all the great things that technology has to offer. Because that's I think, as well, it's a great thing that you can do such a lot of beautiful things with technology, but to keep making sure that you're actually solving the business problem is then getting a challenge sometimes, does it? So I guess your company is in business of advising your clients as well on that. So if clients or the listeners or viewers would like to be in contact with you, how can they do that best?
Easy enough. Email ted.ritter@lmi360.com or go to the IT community website and you'll find my cell phone number. So easy enough.
Okay. Well, Ted, it was great talking to you today. Thank you very much for being with us. And I'm sure as the technology is an ever-evolving profession, we will never be bored in it, will we?
I think we've got a ways to go. Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. And with that, thank you to all the listeners and viewers listening in to this episode, and I hope to see you next time again. Thank you.